Welcome, one and all, to Pacific414 episode review. I'm your host, Mike, and in tonight's special live review, I am joined by my guest, the Padawannabe, and we are going to be going over the season finale of the DCEU original, and you could even call it the HBO Max original, Peacemaker. Welcome, Padawannabe. How are you doing this evening?
Oh, doing well. Thank you again. Appreciate it. I made the opening credits there.
Yes, brother. I try to do that for my guests that are going to be on anything like my episode review series or my movie review series, you know, to make them feel like they're a part of the show because they are. Tonight, you're a part of the show.
Well, thank you. It makes us feel special.
So, as I mentioned, tonight we are going to be talking about the season finale of Peacemaker, which I did see a email from HBO Max saying that the show has been renewed for a second season.
Oh, good.
So,
I'm
so
happy
that's
to hear
actually
that.
good. And let's go ahead and get into this review. So, the episode starts off with everybody in the veterinary mobile unit, and Leota's trying to apologize to Chris, but Chris is having nothing of it. Chris and Vigilante actually start making fart noises or raspberries, depending on what you want to call them, as Leota is trying to apologize. And Chris basically tells her what you did was a pretty crappy thing. And Leota understands that, and that's one of the reasons why she's trying to apologize. She knows she screwed up. But
Yeah,
she was
this scene
also
here, I think, perfectly depicts kind of how I. This is what I suggest have in mind when I will suggest or not suggest this show to people. This scene has that kind of offbeat humor. Not everybody's going to laugh at a fart joke. You know, it's kind of a frat boy kind of thing. And if you can accept these things, you'll be more than happy with the show. Because I think there's a few times in the series when they have some scenes like this.
yeah. Yeah, it's not an every episode occurrence, but it does happen, and especially when you have someone like Vigilante in the scene. He's always
Yeah,
going to end up saying something that's going to make you roll your eyes or just shake your head and think, "Oh my gosh!"
yeah, exactly.
So, you know, they have their conversation, especially considering what happened in the last episode with August Smith being shot in the head and killed by Chris himself. And of course, like I said, you can't blame Chris for being ticked off about that diary being planted in his home because it set him up. But that's what Leota's mother, Amanda Waller, wanted to do. She wanted to set him up, make him look bad. So after they're done having their conversation, of course, we have the opening credits, and we get to the location of the barn. Hardcore comes out and says, "Okay," and it's time to get ready. And Leota gets on her cell phone to talk to Amanda Waller and says, "Mom, we're going to need some backup. They've got a huge cow inside this barn, and they're getting ready to teleport it to who knows where. And we don't have a lot of time to wait."
Yeah, I
And of
thought this
course,
was funny here. They I thought this series did good with the how they buttoned up all the plot stories. This,
mhm,
the cat's out of the bag with everything. The Mern side story got buttoned up, what he was and how he got into the system. And now the cat's out of the bag with Amanda Waller being her mom and all that, and they all just kind of
mhm,
have to accept it. So, and now they're setting up the location here, the teams all together. I think they were doing really good as the series went along, just touching everything. There were no questions to me like, oh, what about this and stuff like that.
mhm. And one of the last things you see is Emily Hardcore. She speaks into the cell phone and she says, "Okay, mom." After hearing Leota talk to her mom, and her mom
Mm-hmm.
saying that Emily's in charge, and then we get a shot of the cow, and of course everybody is getting into position. Vigilante is talking to Leota about her relationship with her wife, and talking about the dynamics of the relationship and who's in charge in the relationship. And Leota puts Vigilante in his place because honestly, I'm just gonna say it. Vigilante's an idiot.
Yeah, I mean, we since the beginning we see him as that kind of out of place nerd. His
Hmm.
mentality comes into question a little bit. Never anything indicative of any problems, but you're like, God, this guy just does not get it. His jokes
Nope.
are a little off, and everything about him is just a little awkward.
That it is. It's like, oh my gosh, dude. There's a time and a place for things that you want to mention, but everything you're mentioning has no time and it has no place. And I want to say hello to Darius Munchausen. Welcome. And also, I want to say to Amen Fate, or as I've heard, he prefers to be called Fate. Welcome, Fate. So, Leota has a duffel bag that had all the helmets that Peacemaker was trying to discard in the last episode. And she puts them up on a log. And let me try to get a shot where we see all the helmets, at least close enough to it. All right, I went too far ahead. There we go. So there are 4 different helmets that we have here. This one was the human torpedo. There was the Sonic helmet. There's the anti gravity helmet. And then there's also one that gives people scabies, except the user.
This is like some old school joke, man. It's so
Mm-hmm.
like ridiculous, and people who don't know won't get it, and the people who have experienced it or have people around, it's like, oh man, this is just a bad joke.
Oh,
A
oh
bad
yeah.
joke with good intentions, kind of thing.
Mm-hmm. So what ends up happening after the discussion about what each helmet can do is Leota accidentally says activate when she's talking about the anti-gravity helmet. And the helmet activates and it goes up into the air. And Chris tries in vain to tell it to deactivate, but it's too far out of range for it to hear his voice. So it's going up there into the stratosphere.
Yeah, I was really expecting to see Vigilante like jump on this thing or something as it was raising him up in the air. I was expecting just one more comic relief line out of this moment, but they let it go. They had to keep the story moving.
Yeah, they did. And one of the things that happens is Vigilante, mentions the fact that August is dead. And, Chris even mentions that one of the helmets is experimental. And Vigilante reminds him, well, you killed the guy that invented it. And Chris is all, I know.
Yeah, sarcasm is lost on him.
Yeah, it certainly is lost on Vigilante. Like I said, and this is just my opinion. This isn't Padawanabe's opinion. It's just my opinion. The character's an idiot. The actor's doing a great job playing the idiot, but the character is an idiot.
Well, I almost look at him as like Sheldon from Big Bang. Like
Hmm.
as vigilante, he's decent. He knows how to do those questionable acts, but in the real world, he just doesn't function right.
Exactly. And so they're coming up with a plan on how to get the sonic boom helmet onto the barn. Well, since they no longer have the anti gravity helmet, their next best option is Eagly. And Chris thinks that he can communicate with Eagly and tell Eagly what he needs to do by flying up to the barn with the helmet and dropping it onto the roof of the barn. Well, that doesn't go well. And you get teased a little bit
Yeah,
when
they made us a
Eagly,
little hopeful.
yeah, Eagly starts flying away and he has the helmet. And, everybody's thinking, wait a minute, Eagly's actually doing it. Eagly is actually listening to what Chris said. And everybody's just in awe. They just can't believe it for their own eyes. And then, just when you think it's actually going to happen, I'm trying to bring it up here on screen. If I can't get the exact shot, I'll just tell you all what happens. Eagly takes a hard right, goes toward the woods, and drops the helmet. He fakes them all out.
Now,
and
and we've
Emily,
watched the series, so we understand that there is some communication between Peacemaker and Eagly, as
yep.
whatever rudimentary or as pet to master kind of relationship they have. But there is definitely some communication. But it's Eagly is still an eagle when you
Yep.
really get down to it. He's not a dog. He's.
Hmm. And Emily looks at Chris and says, I knew it wasn't going to work. And I got to be honest. I know we haven't finished the review yet, but I'm going to go ahead and say it now anyway. I really grew to like Emily.
Yeah, actually, I mean, all the characters, their likability, I think goes up for all of them through the series. But she
Mhm.
comes off as that. She's kind of that Amanda Waller right off the bat, where nobody really has a relationship with her, and they all think she's kind of a hard ass. So
Yeah.
she
Well,
comes the furthest along for sure.
she really is a hard ass. She's the one that's there to get the job done. She knows
Hmm.
what she has to do, and she doesn't want to waste any time fooling around, joking around. She's all, I have a task to do. I want to get in there, get the job done, and get out.
Yeah, she's definitely got them. I mean, other than Peacemaker, I don't know exactly what training Vigilante has, but she's definitely got more training than the rest of them, put
Mhm.
together. And we've seen her hold her own. And I thought it's been very believable in what we've seen her do, in what we've seen all the women characters do. I haven't seen anything, with the exception of you want to suspend your belief a little, but it hasn't been over the top or unbelievable to me.
No, it hasn't been in your face, and that's what I've really
Hmm.
enjoyed about the series. Now, granted, as I've said before, that in the beginning I wasn't particularly caring for the series all that much, but I just kept
Hmm.
watching, and I'm glad I stuck around.
Yeah, those
Unfortunately, I
first two
can't.
episodes are a bit different. When you go
Yeah.
back and you view them a second time, the pacing is not quite as smooth as the episodes all after, but it you can really see they figured out what worked better than other things, and they got their editing real clean, I think.
Mhm. And in this scene, we see the cow, but the reason why we're seeing the electricity and everything is because they have teleporter, transporter, fully functional and online. They're just waiting for it to warm up so they can teleport this cow to their next destination. Meanwhile, everyone else is looking in the woods for the sonic boom helmet that Eagly dropped, and John and Vigilante are talking back and forth. And again, Vigilante's being an idiot. I'm just going to keep saying that. He
Yeah.
is being an idiot. And John's trying to be practical. And then, meanwhile, you have Leota and Emily. They're also looking for the helmet. And of course, this is where Emily says, "Why did you tell us that your mother was Amanda Waller?" And Leota gives her the reason, saying she didn't want to complicate things because, everybody has their own opinion of Amanda Waller. Meanwhile, Chris is having hallucinations. And also, you can call it guilt for the fact that he killed August. So he starts seeing his father. His father starts heckling him, bad mouthing him, telling him, You're a wuss. You can't do this. And, really getting under his skin. So, what does Chris end up doing after he talks to the ghost of his father? He ends up basically taking some sort of tranquilizer or poison dart, and he shoots at him, and August ends up falling down, and they discover the helmet. But while this happened, Emily comes about, and she's seeing Chris talk to nothing at all.
Yeah, and Chris is
And
well aware. He's very aware that he knows it's a figment of his imagination, and he
mhm,
consciously makes that effort to pull the blow dart. So he knows what's going on with himself. He's just getting through it, kind of thing.
yeah, because you have to put in the perspective of the character too. The character
Yeah.
just killed his own father, and
Well, that,
now
and I think
he's
it is a real big culmination. His father is kind of the culmination of his brother, as we see finally watching through the
mhm,
series, and then
yep.
we've seen his father have him do a couple other questionable things. So there's probably even more that we don't know about. So I think the father is going to be, I don't, depending on what they do in the future series, but he could definitely be his conscience, trying to come to grips with what he is as a person.
Yep. And that's another thing. You don't sign a guy like Robert Patrick onto your series for just one season. You want
Hmm.
him there for multiple seasons.
Yeah, that's those are the things that make you. It's like, wow, why'd they go after some of these particular actors and actresses for parts like this? Yeah, that also makes me very curious.
So where the ghost of August falls onto the leaves, that's where the helmet ends up being. And Emily takes it out of the leaves, clears it of all the leaves, and she looks at Chris and says, "I need you to do something else for me." And we get a shot of the barn. All the body snatched officers and inmates are there. And, well, what is that job? The job is for Christopher to trying to get it just right. I may not be able to. Yeah.
Oh,
All
it
right.
happens
So,
pretty quick.
yeah,
That's it right there.
I'm
Yeah,
I'm I'm not actually gonna show it, but Christopher goes up to this officer. He takes out that poison dart that he used,
yeah,
and he sticks it into this guy's ear, killing both the body and the inhabitant of the body, the butterfly.
yeah. That's what I thought too. I was like, oh, that was a kill shot for that particular alien.
Hmm. So,
And yeah, we're assuming now that everybody here is infected, not
hmm,
like the security guards with golf. before because I think that he was legitimately a human.
Yep. Yes, that is very true, Batsy. Yo, it's never not a
Oh,
good
right
time to
on.
rock from last episode. Yes.
Yeah, Betsy,
So
I think that's one of my friends from a gaming community. He's watching this
very cool.
Peacemaker show too. He enjoys it a lot.
Very cool. Very cool. So after Peacemaker takes care of that body snatched officer, he comes back with the uniform and they give it to John because they want John to go into the barn with the Sonic helmet and leave it there so they can set it off. And the way they're going to do that is they're going to have a walkie talkie wrapped around it. So they can communicate with it and say activate and set it off. And of course, John says, "Why are these pants wet? I had to
No.
wash them in the river, dude. Are you telling me there's diarrhea?
Oh,
No,
so gross.
no. Wait. There's diarrhea? Yes, there's diarrhea. People crap their pants when they die."
I thought it
And
was
John,
kind of funny, the little side remark, because he says something like, that's one of the real things of war. You know, patriots never talk about it, but
mm-hmm. So they go over their strategy of what they're gonna do. John's gonna put on the uniform and he's gonna take the helmet inside a duffel bag and go into the barn and then leave the duffel bag there so they can set off the sonic boom helmet. Of course, John doesn't want to do it. I mean, you can't blame him, but he ends up going through with it.
yeah, he's the
And
least willing to step forward for the to be the man of action.
mhm. And I want to say hello to the Norporeal life form. All right.
Hello, all chatters.
Thank you, brother. Thank you for the support as always. Really appreciate it, brother. So John's going, of course, he's going, this is stupid. This is stupid. I don't want to do this. Why do I have to do this? Oh man, oh man, oh man, I don't want to do this. And then one of the detectives who was possessed comes up to him and says, "Where are you going? What are you doing?" And he is told by John, "I'm going into the barn." And then we get a little bit more of John's backstory. And the reason why we get more of the backstory is because the detective, let me try to get a better shot of the detective here. The
Well, does
detective,
he ask him? I think he asks him what it is that he's going in for, and he says this case, and he's like, "Oh, okay, I was
mhm,
just checking." And then doesn't he go in and then come back out, and that's when they confront him with the story, because I think that's when they run out right after him with they're like, "Hey, this guy put this in here."
yeah, because I was gonna get to
Oh, sorry, I got excited. It is warm.
see that it's having problems on the StreamYard side. Okay, it's back up. Let me just check the stream to make sure you all are seeing it. Okay. And also, just to let you all know, this is on a 30-second delay, just in case any bots come in. This way I can get rid of them. But John's nervous. He starts throwing up, thinking, oh my God, I was about to be caught. And let's see. Batsy says, that is one of the real themes of war. P is warm. How do the various helmets keep going off? Different walkies. Exactly. So,
Oh, I'm pretty sure I know what he's referring to, and we'll get to that here in a as this
mhm.
movie or as this scene progresses, as I do know what he's talking about. And I think I have the right answer for what happens there. The beard
Yeah.
monologue.
And of course, John, he's still having cold feet. He doesn't want to continue with it. And this is where he decides, forget it. After going down the steps, and Emily's telling him, don't creep down the steps. It's going to draw attention to you. Go down there naturally.
Yeah.
Because they're trying to get in there and get out without being noticed.
Yeah, he's super nervous for good reason. And to just walk emotionless, you know, he doesn't know what he's doing. Like we were
Mm-hmm.
saying before, he's the last guy on the team you want in this position.
Yep. So he ends up looking down. I mean, it's a long walk down to the cavern, and decides, you know what? Forget this. Especially after he sees the cow.
Yeah, he sees that cow and he says, "No, no more guy juice." He's got that.
No,
He
no.
kind of has that line in the Suicide Squad, and I'm like, "Oh, is this some kind of Godzilla reference?"
Mm-hmm. He doesn't want to face kaiju, so he starts making his way out, and Emily's all, John, get in there and do the job. Come on. So John's rushing out, and that's when the detective calls him when he gets to the outside and, starts questioning him. First he's going in, and now he's coming out. Even a butterfly is going to be suspicious. And this is where everybody starts to hear the story. More of John's background, more of John's backstory, which I actually thought was pretty cool and pretty good for the character, talking about why he dyes his beard, thinking that nobody would notice because he spends more time with his job than he does with anyone else. His job has always been his focus. He's not married, he's not in any kind of relationship, and the relationship he is in is with his job.
This was what I was referencing earlier with the how I thought the show did really well in tying up all their loose ends. This wasn't really even a plot point in the story at all. But
Mm-hmm.
when this scene came up, I was taken aback. I was like, "Oh, or is he gonna come out? What's gonna happen here?" I wasn't sure. And yeah, we get a little kind of dip into his emotional side here.
Yeah, and he mentions Peacemaker not by name, but saying that there's this guy who points out the fact that I dye my beard, and I try to deny the fact that I dye my beard.
And this, to me, excuse me, he becomes very relatable for a lot of
Mm-hmm.
people because he's not a shut-in person, but he's just not very outgoing personality wise. He has an office job. He wants to make an effort, but he is very busy and he knows he is who he is. He knows he's socially awkward and things like that. So this story to me was very relatable for my generation growing up and knowing a lot of people that would have been considered intellectually advanced, you know, and they would get teased in school and then later on they had great careers and things like that, but they were never quite, as comfortable as some of the other people you would see in society.
Mm-hmm. The popular kids. You
Hmm.
have in high school, the popular girl, the popular guys, and you know, the leader of the sports teams, whether it's
Yeah, I think
baseball or
you and I are
football.
direct descendants from that click generation. We still
Mm-hmm.
had jocks and popular people, and you had we even had the mods coming out, and the goths and all those groups coming up, but there was the metalheads and all that kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So there's not as much of that kind of thing now, which I think is probably one of the best things with the new generation.
Yeah.
But I just made every character to me in this show had this moment, and they all become
Yep.
very relatable. But him over most, you know, this is really tying up the team, tying it up in a neat ribbon and a bow, and making them realize we are a team.
Yep. And Batsy is saying he's relatable when he frames the group picture from the bus. Yeah. Which that actually comes near the end, but we saw them take the picture in the series, so it's not like they're just throwing in this random picture and we're going, when was that taken? No.
Yeah, that was Economos stepped up the first time, kind of came out of nowhere with the chainsaw.
Yeah, when he killed the gorilla.
Yeah. You people in the chat, if you don't know what we're talking about, you have to watch the series.
Yeah, definitely. I'm gonna say it at the end, but I'm sure you guys can pretty much tell where I'm leaning when it comes to the series, considering where I started with the series. Very similar to Chucky. If anybody watched my Chucky reviews, you know how I felt about that series at the beginning.
I'm gonna have to watch that. I was not sure, and I've heard 3 or 4 people now say that it's worth checking out,
Mm-hmm.
especially if you like the old original Chucky movies.
So then what ends up happening is John is discovered and he is running for his life because all the body snatch people are running after him. And, he's screaming, panicking for his life. And that's when they look at Leota and they tell Leota, because she has one of the walkies, to activate the helmet. So she activates the helmet after she initially drops the walkie-talkie because her hands are sweaty and she's nervous, and you can see it in the character's face. The actress did a great job in that scene, showing that emotion, showing that she's nervous. So she says, "Activate sonic helmet," and the blast goes off, destroying the barn. But their job's not done yet. So she activates it a few more times. And there you can see a shot of the helmet getting ready to go off after Leota says activate. So it goes off. And what Chris told her in the beginning is that you have 3 to 4 chances to get this sucker to go off, because that's how many charges it holds. Once it's out, it's out. So thanks to that, John is able to get back, but there is a lot of destruction, debris, and there's remains because one of the butterfly people actually found the bag and brought it out and was holding it when it was first activated. So we get a shot from underground in the cave. Rocks are falling, boulders are falling. The cave ceiling is starting to come down. Not enough to completely collapse it, but to do some damage. And then this, trying to get a group shot. This is where Peacemaker, Hardcore, Vigilante are getting ready to go in, but they need John and Leota to stay back as emergency backup, where if everything goes wrong, they need to get the heck up out of there and get back to headquarters.
Okay, and this I can answer Bat's question before, because I was thinking about this too, and the way, because this is right after the last blast has gone from the sonic boom helmet.
Mm-hmm.
And the first one we see is not quite all the way in the barn, I think. It's like right at the doorway, more or less.
Yeah, yeah, it
So that
is.
one goes off and kind of does more or less collateral damage because there's only very few butterflies near it. But what it does do is when the sonic boom helmet goes off, we see it earlier when he activates it, it makes a shield around him. So it literally affects everything around him, even what's underneath him. Because he wasn't
Mm-hmm.
sitting on a little piece of concrete when he killed the first butterfly with the helmet. He was in a crater. And then the shield, you
Mm-hmm.
see it deactivate around him. So what I think's happening is they tape the walkie inside the helmet so it's kind of protected. And then the helmet goes off once, does not enough damage to, like you were saying, collapse the cave, but you see it affecting it. But then when it goes off again, I think then it actually makes a hole right there in the ground and starts falling through because the
Yeah.
caverns essentially look right under the barn because when he goes down them stairs, it's pretty much kind of a staircase straight down, more or less. So I think it just
Mm-hmm.
kind of keeps putting a hole in the ground and it's going down, but every blast is going to do more and more damage. And then that
So,
last one, you see it kind of come out like a smokestack, and it's like, oh, that's it.
yep. Yeah, it's done for. So they go through their strategy, and then this is where the theme song itself plays.
Yeah.
And I'm gonna say it because it was this scene, this whole lead up to it was badass.
This is the hero scene, as I think they would call it. And this is just
Mm-hmm.
you hear that song, the do you really wanna taste it? And that just set it off, you know. You
Yep.
hear that throughout the series in the beginning, and most of the time it's just the intro. You skip past it, but now they introduce it in as the top three guys. You know, the top three of the team basically are walking in now.
Mm-hmm. So they're gunning down all the butterflies. Vigilantes slicing and dicing, Emily shooting, Peacemaker's shooting. He's using his shield, and they're doing all sorts of tricks to not only kill the butterflies but knock the shield. At one point, 'cause I skipped toward it, trying to get
This was
back
a
a little
good
bit.
way, I thought they showed their skill and how they could be cohesive, you know. They because there was never a question with these guys of no, I do this by myself. They were
Hmm.
always pretty willing, and now this is the opportunity to shine. I think, yeah,
Yeah.
like you were saying, this scene was just really well shot.
Mhm. So this is where the possessed Detective Sophie, or Goth, as we come to learn the character's name, the butterfly, is going back down to the barn, and Emily tells Chris, "Go after her, stop Goth," and everybody's doing what they have to do. That detective was going after Peacemaker. Vigilante comes up and says, leave my BFF alone," gets rid of him. And Chris gets down there. He's walking down the stairs when the stairs collapse, and he starts going down a hole, and he is now trapped in the cave. And Vigilante is still slicing and dicing, taking care of business. He ends up getting shot, and he takes one of his daggers, throws it at one of the butterflies, and hardcore Emily is also being shot at. There's actually a butterfly who takes a shotgun, shoots her, hits her, and then she gets hit again. And this is where she goes down to the ground. And she's
Yeah,
coughing
it's
up
a
blood.
heart stopping moment right here. She
Hmm.
gets she gets peppered up pretty good, and then she gets that second shot, and you're like, oh no.
So, you know, we see that, and then we see the reaction from Leota and John. And Leota says, "Hardcore's down." And then what does Leota decide to do? Well, Leota decides she's gonna grab her two guns that are in the bag, and she's gonna go and try to save Hardcore. Of course, John is hesitant, but John ends up going with her, but he doesn't get as far as Leota because he ends up tripping over the fence and severely injuring himself right here, injuring his knee.
Yeah, this guy, he's gone in and saved him before, and then he goes in and drops the bombs in there, not where he needed to, but and then he does all that stuff, makes it back, and then he's like, oh, okay, forget it, I'll go help. And this is when he trips.
Mm-hmm. So Leota's going, she's gunning people down with both guns. She's got two guns, one for each. Yeah. A butterfly is actually trying to fly into Hardcore and take over her body. Leota comes, takes the butterfly out, and shoots it, and then tosses its remain. And this is where Emily is telling Leota, you've got to help Chris. Because Emily knows, everybody knows that Chris can't do it alone. And of course,
Yes, they aren't superheroes. They have no powers, unfortunately.
no. And I want to say hello to Cool Spot. Welcome. Am I cool? Well, I'm not gonna say I'm cool. That's up to you to decide.
You're
And
not cool if you don't watch Pacific 414. Only the cool kids watch Pacific 414.
thank you, Adam Wannabe. Yes, Star Wars is cool. So is Peacemaker. DC is cool. Well, yeah, this show is definitely cool. Let's see. Well, thank you. Really appreciate it, Cool Spot. So,
Gosh, so much has happened, and there's still so much in this episode.
oh yeah. So what ends up happening is John ends up crawling his way to Leota, and he has the human torpedo helmet and tosses it to her.
Oh man.
So Leota, using a tracking app, is going down into the cave, and she intends to help Chris. And she goes to the area where the stairs collapsed, and ends up making her way down, still using the tracking app. Meanwhile, Chris is trapped underneath the debris, you know, being being forced to try to get the debris off him, but the force of the debris is also crushing him because it's not just wood that's on top of him, it's also rock.
Yeah, you see him get covered. There was quite a bit that fell on. There was no way he was going to be able to do it himself. I was like, "Whoa, man! What's going to happen?" They're building it up.
Mm-hmm. Yep. So Leota gets down. She is blocked by some debris, so she starts clearing away the debris. And we get a fake out. We do get a fake out coming up where a hand actually does reach in and pull John Cena, Christopher Smith, Peacemaker out, but it's not who you think it is.
Right? Yeah, I thought they did very well with this scene, how they built it up. And you're like, oh, he's gonna be saved. He's gonna be okay. And then you see him slide out so easy. And it's like, wow, how'd she get him out so easy? And then you see who did it, and you're like, oh no.
Yep. And this is where Chris sees that it's Sophie's son, Detective Sophie, also known as Goth. And Chris says Goth, and Goth says yes. So they do have a little bit of a fight, a little bit of a tussle. Mr. Hustle, Loyalty, and Respect, John Cena says, "You can't see me."
Yeah. I'm surprised I didn't even see a reference, even a side reference or anything from any, like, I thought I might see something about him being John Cena wrestler, but I didn't notice anything personally.
No, I was just adding that in because I spent a lot of time in my life watching wrestling. So,
I just really was expecting somebody, even Vigilante could have put both hands in front of his face and be like, I'm invisible right now. You can't see me,
mm,
right? No.
yeah, a little that would have been a little tongue in cheek reference.
Yeah. That's why, man, I was really surprised there was nothing even slightly, because almost every movie now, they, with The Rock in it, they reference his eyebrow move. You
Hmm.
know?
Yep,
But that it is good. I like this series a whole lot. Still building.
still building, and at one point the fight stops, and Goth speaks to Christopher, saying, "You're a good person. You kept me alive, even though you didn't have to. You spoke with me. You fed me." And she says, "I need your help. You're the peacemaker." So she wants his help to teleport the cow to Maryland because that's where their next secret hideout location was. And his job is to accept the conditions of helping them because this guy is going to be using one lever and Goth wants Peacemaker to use the other one to teleport the cow.
And this is, I think this don't I just watched this episode, but I can't remember. Is this also where they reference how Judo Master was working with them because they
Hmm.
explained his story, and that's what it seemed to me. It's like, okay, Goff does have this relationship with Peacemaker, and he's like, oh, he's kind of giving him the same offer. Like, work with
Hmm.
us. We won't take you over. Work with us. We want peace, even though they have a crooked version of it.
Yep, because what she tells Christopher Smith is the plight of their planet and how everything went bad and how they basically destroyed their own ecosystem. And the same thing is happening here on Earth, and they're there to prevent us from destroying our own planet, our own ecosystem. Yes, they can inhabit the bodies and drink the water, but that cow provides their food source because our food doesn't give them the energy they need.
Yeah, it's almost like the water sustains the human body, but they still need their nutrients, obviously, for
Hmm.
their bug part.
Yeah. So Goth is trying to plead with Peacemaker's good heart, and we get a flashback of Peacemaker as a young boy after killing his brother Keith. And he's praying and he says he'll do anything for peace. He won't kill. So this is where young Christopher is praying and he says he won't kill unless it's necessary, which is something that he was telling Leota in the veterinary truck on their way to the barn. And of course, Leota says, "That's just stupid. You're not going to kill unless it's necessary." I mean, it's okay to kill other people like we just did, but in other terms, you're going to make your own rules when it's acceptable and not acceptable to kill people. That's pretty much what she says.
And those, if followed along with the James Gunn, timeline storyline, this is referencing him being who he was in Suicide Squad.
Hmm.
In the second one, and being that, because he was very much the cold-blooded killer in that movie. But by the end, and they show it with that. I think that killing Flag at that moment
Hmm.
changed a lot for him.
And Batsy also says the reference to us humans also being parasites. Yeah,
Of
you're not
course
wrong.
we are.
So this is where Goth Sophie tries to plead with Christopher Smith's inner humanity, especially being the Peacemaker, and she says, "This is why I drew the peace sign on the jar, because this is what we want." Now, whether you believe that was her intentions or you think it's a ruse, that's up to you. I think, in my opinion, it was just Goth giving him the ruse.
Well, it's kind of both ways. Goff wants peace, but he wants
Mm-hmm.
peace on his terms.
Mm-hmm.
They don't want to really help us. They don't want to make themselves known and be a positive influence. They'd rather just take it upon themselves to infect who they need to get things done faster.
Yep.
Which
So,
is, you know, we could say it's a play on government, maybe.
yeah. So what ends up happening before Chris pushes Sophie away and shoots her and kills her, as Chris says, activate human torpedo. Leota, shielded as a human torpedo, flies up into the cow and ends up killing the cow and coming out. And yeah, I thought this part was disgusting, but Leota said it just right. Oh, what is this crap? So Chris helps her
I
get
saw
up.
this and I was like, oh, they Captain Marveled him. You
Yep.
know?
Yep.
So gross. And this is the one thing I call BS on this whole series. The black lady falls out of this thing from just getting shot inside of it. And she doesn't say anything about all that junk being in her hair.
Well, I mean, I don't care who it is. If you're the
Yeah,
human
yeah.
torpedo and you're being shot up into this alien kaiju,
Oh,
and then you come out of that alien kaiju, I think anybody would be going, "Oh my god, what is this stuff?"
this was so funny. I instantly got, Ghostbusters when Venkman gets slimed, just all those disgusting Nickelodeon slimed moments. I was like, oh
Mm-hmm.
man, they just covered her. Her clothes are
Yep.
all stained red. You can't see any of the patches or anything. I was just like, oh, that's so disgusting.
Mm-hmm.
But it was funny. But this is kind of that line this series rides as far
Mm-hmm.
as comedy goes.
Yep. So Christopher helps her take off the helmet, and they walk out of the barn. And then a surprise happens here shortly after Chris is, over Emily's body, and of course she's not dead. She's not dead, folks.
See, this I thought they did well. He
Mm-hmm.
doesn't come to her rescue, but he does help her.
Yep.
And I thought they played it good. They didn't do that macho chick thing they do these days, and they just accepted it. I thought this series did well. It actually
Mm-hmm.
had, you know, substantial white males in it. Granted, they had that certain sheeted angle going, but you know what I mean.
Yep. So he picks her up, he carries her, and I like this shot here, the group
Yeah,
shot.
so good.
Yeah,
Yeah, this.
some people might say, "Oh, but he's carrying Emily." Yeah, well, she's injured, so he's taking his teammate, his comrade in arms, and he's gonna get her medical attention. But you see John and Leota, you see Vigilante.
Yeah,
Vigilante being able to.
this was a great hero shot right here. And
Mhm.
that's why I referenced that point I just made about him. He didn't rescue her. She was downed. He's helping
Yep.
her across the finish line. She made it. She's alive. She did her job. you know.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah,
So
this is such. Oh, go ahead. I'm excited. This scene was great.
we get a surprise appearance. The Justice League arrive. That's why I have the spoilers at the beginning of the credits, folks. The
And how so unexpected. Just them referencing the Justice League in the beginning. I almost, or in the beginning of this episode, I took that mention much more how we see Deadpool referencing the X-Men. You know, it's a very much a joke kind of put in there just to be put in there. But this at the end here, this was just so great how they did this.
Mm-hmm. And of course, Peacemaker makes a little quirk about Aquaman.
Yeah, I was like, okay, they referenced that a bit, and I was like, I wonder if that was a little bit of a stab at the boys. I don't know if you've seen that series with their Aquaman character.
No, I haven't.
Oh, you haven't seen that one? Okay, because they
Uh,
have an Aquaman character. I'm not gonna say anything to give it away, but I kind of went, oh, I wonder if that's a little stab. But actually seeing Jason Momoa there, I was
mm-hmm.
like, wow, they got them to be in this, man. I
Yep.
thought it was pretty cool.
It was cool. Yep. Yep. Because after Peacemaker makes reference to that, Aquaman says, I don't do that. I'm tired of that rumor. And the Flash tried to get to a shot of.
Yeah, that line is so quick. But yeah, even to see Ezra Miller in there, I know a lot of people don't like him, but I thought that was a kick to see two of these, both Jason Momoa and Ezra Miller. Then he's
There we
what
go.
is he? Yeah, there it is. It's not a
Yeah.
rumor.
Yeah, because Aquaman's saying, I'm so tired of that rumor. It's not a rumor. Shut up, Barry.
uh, yeah, that was good stuff. I like that one a lot. I just thought that was a yeah. I mean, we already know how Peacemaker felt about them all.
Mm-hmm. But here's another shot of the group, the team. So then the next thing is we are inside the hospital. Emily's being taken to the emergency room. Vigilante's saying he's all good. You know, he doesn't need to get any medical attention. He just needs to get a little sleep. Well, what ends up happening is Vigilante collapses and falls to the ground.
Yeah, like we saw him when he thought he was okay, and he got in the car and drove away, and he passed out.
Mm-hmm. Yep. So this is where Leota and Peacemaker actually have a nice talk. They have a nice talk about, did Christopher make the right choice? Did he just doom humanity by killing Goth and killing the cow and all the butterflies who were inhabiting those bodies? And Leota says, I think you made the right choice. You made the choice that'll help us determine our own fate, decide our own fate instead of our bug overlords. She also mentions that he's, so caught up in wanting to be the patriotic hero that he sometimes forgets what's right in front of him. That's at least how I interpreted it.
Oh yeah, I mean, this is when she's basically telling him, you know, this is they're tying the bow on them two now, because there's no fart
Hmm.
jokes here. They're
Nope.
really heartfelt, and you know what she did proves to him that she is sorry and she's willing to work with him, and they are a team. You know, because that was
Hmm.
always his big question the whole time. You know, and he knows she was sorry, but it was still an effed up thing to do. The thing she did with the diary, and the, you know, just coming in and being kind of hidden from all them knowing what she was doing and who she was. But this was their moment here, the
Yep.
relationship between these two, and we always kind of saw this almost in every episode that they did have a special relationship different from all the other ones.
Hmm.
And this was just really cool to see. This is how they can make a, a non-white female character strong and likable. They did not push this character down our throats at all. And she is blatantly gay. They have jokes about that in the series several times, and they address it many times. And I just thought she was a good character, and how they end their heartfelt conversation here when Peacemaker says what he says, and she has no words. She just kind of holds a fist to her chest, and it's like, ah, man, I that was just such a good moment and
It
very
is.
real.
Because it just goes to show they can write characters that you don't care what they look like on the outside. You care about the character themselves, their integrity.
No, and Peacemaker himself, he's
He's
attractive in
not an
his own
angel.
way, but he's kind of goofy and he's a little abnormal,
Mhm.
and all these characters are they are very distinctive to their certain genre of personality.
Mhm. So, they mend their fences. They, you know, come to an agreement. Things are what they are, but if there's anyone I consider a friend, and don't tell Vigilante this, besides Eagly, I consider you my friend.
BFF, no
Yeah.
less.
Yep.
And that's a big thing for him. We've seen him grow as a person through this series. Adebayo's pretty much been who she was. She just had to hide part of herself from the people closest to her.
Yep. And this is where there's a news conference, and it's talking about Project Butterfly and saying that Vigilante and Peacemaker were actually working for the government to stop this alien invasion. And you see Vigilante leave his hospital room.
Yeah, there was no reason for him not to just check out normally. He just rips
Hmm.
everything off and jumps out the window.
Yep. But that's Vigilante for you. But we got another cameo in this episode when
Yeah, that.
Leota
Oh,
Leota mentions that her mother is Amanda Waller in this press conference, and it's pretty much letting everybody know what was going on. And Amanda's all, son of a.
yeah, they really curbed Amanda Waller's language for this series.
Mhm.
For sure. I was like, oh man, okay, the next mission, I can see them walking into even more of a crappier headquarters than they did in this one, and then be like, wow,
Mhm.
you guys thought we were handed the crappy end of the stick last time.
Yep. So we got another scene at the hospital. Chris is being permitted to visit Emily in her room. And I thought this scene was good too. I'm trying to get to it where Emily starts coming to and she says, "So I've heard you've been here the last few days." And Chris says, "Yes." And there's a really good moment between the two of them. Really good scene, really good moment. Emily actually sheds a tear in her right eye
Yeah, I think that's
because
a big deal for her personally, because she mentions many times that you kind of give yourself up and you do what you need to do for your close brothers in arms,
mhm.
especially those that are on your same team. And I think that meant a lot to her, especially the way she looked at Peacemaker in the beginning.
Yeah, and this is where they're holding hands. Now, it doesn't mean that they're going to start a romance between these two characters. I think these two characters have a better understanding of each other, and that's her way of letting Christopher know that she has his back.
Yeah, you look at it and it's like, well, they could make it romantic. It didn't come off that way.
No.
I took it as much more of an acceptance
Hmm.
because we seen them, they sit down at the bar a couple times and she really just gives him the shine on routine, like, just get away from me, you pig, kind of thing. And
Yeah.
now she's softened to him. She realizes that he's, even though he's the way he is, hey, he's trustworthy and I can have him on my team.
I mean, you got to give the actress credit too. Her facial expressions when she needed to give that, itch look, she gave the itch look.
Oh yeah, I think she does really well. I think they all do real. I mean, I go into the series automatically thinking John Cena is the worst actor.
Hmm.
Just because I know he knows how to be behind a camera and give lines, but I know a lot of these other people from other things they've done, and it was nice that they brought back some of the Suicide Squad, the tech team. I liked that
Yeah.
tie-in. And yeah, all the characters were really well done. It seems like everybody was in constant communication. Hey, what are we doing during this scene? How do we want it to flow? And the director
Hmm.
definitely gave a good, I don't know what they have to do in editing, but I thought the show seemed very cohesive once they figured out how the characters were affecting the show.
Hmm. Of course, here you see, Leota and her wife reunited, and it feels so good.
That's the only scene I had a problem with in the whole one. I was like, okay, they're holding on this a little long, but I feel that way. Even it's an action series, the love romance is very back
Yeah.
burner, and I was like, okay, I get it. They're closing this one up, and they're a lot. I can give them a few extra seconds, but this is very much those people would call this a propaganda shot, kind of thing. But it's very accepting. I totally
It,
accepted the relationship they gave us with these two women.
mhm. Because again, with this episode, they tied up a lot of loose ends that pertain to this first season. And one of
Yeah,
the
yeah.
one of the things that was not constantly in your face, but you were reminded of it every now and then is the fact that Leota was away from her wife a lot, and her wife wanted her to be home.
And this kind of job too. Like they both know who her mother is. They're the only two that really knew what was going on the whole time. I
Hmm.
mean, I it just they knew there was a possibility of danger, and I just think, and Leota's real with herself. She's not a desk jockey, but she's not the kill and not ask questions person.
Yeah,
She's definitely the conscience on the team.
and I like what Batsy says here. True, genuine relationship, something we all forget from time to time. Yes, definitely. So, one of our last shots is of John, and he's going into the penitentiary as an employee, and he sets his stuff down, his laptop, and then one of the last things he takes out of the case is this photo. And let me try to get a good shot. There we go. Photo that was taken after they got rid of the gorilla.
Yeah.
And it's never a wrong time to rock. That's what I would theme that picture. Because in that episode, what is Chris doing? What are they all doing inside that van? They're rocking. The only one who wasn't having a part of it was Emily.
Yep. She was not there yet. That was the first time the ice broke for her. Because
Mm-hmm.
especially with Economos coming in there at the end, but she really believed she had some incompetent dummies on her team for sure.
Yep. Incompetent buffoons. And one of the final shots we get is of Judo Master, and he's looking around at the remains of the barn, the remains of the carnage. There's blood all over the hay and bodies just strewn everywhere. And he starts crying. But he has a Cheeto before he
Yeah,
starts crying.
always with those flaming hot Cheetos.
Yep.
And I did think that was a funny scene when he's holding Peacemaker hostage and he's like, "Yeah, can I get a Cheeto?" And he starts flicking them at him. He's like, "Ah, what do they
Yep.
put in Cheetos?"
Yep. And of course, we see Vigilante and
Oh, yes.
Peacemaker. They put an incendiary device inside this car, they blow it up.
Yeah, he still needs to get the over under stats on that grenade on the tank shell.
Hmm.
He needs to know what that thing does a little better.
And then we see Emily, and she's going through rehab, learning to walk once again, building her strength back up. But there's a really important scene here at the end where Goth the
Yeah, this
butterfly
last one. Wow.
flies to Christopher's trailer, and you see Christopher putting down the last of the amber, the food for Goth, and Goth is eating. But I'm trying to be careful and not skip over this next scene, shot in the scene at least. The last
Yeah,
shot
like
you see
right
after
there.
Eagly drops his gift to Christopher, after Eagly flies off, goes into the woods, and strikes a kill, is this last shot with August and Christopher. So what's
Yeah,
gonna happen next?
and the way he walks, it's this one really made me think. This was a surprise for this series for me because this ending shot, you get this America's great shot. Get the bald eagle that walks in. They got the American flag on the trailer.
Hmm.
Peacemaker there. He's winning his battle against morality. And then his father comes in. But his father showed up in the spot where the helmet was.
Yep.
If you go back and notice that. So it's although he is, it's the way he looked at him in life. He's not the greatest person, but he still was my father.
Hmm.
You know what I mean? As my father, he may have been decent. As a leader of the KKK group, he was not. And that bled into his relationship with his brother and the other people. But yeah, he definitely notices him when he sits down, he stiffens up. So it makes
Hmm.
me curious. I don't know if they meant to do this or not, but Eagly does not see his father.
Mm-mm.
I thought they might have had him go up and peck him or something. But we'll have to see if they address that later. It's kind of I take Eagly as Peacemaker's spirit animal per se. But
Yep.
yeah, and they do this typical hero shot at the end, which I thought was really good. And it just makes me appreciate a computer
I mean,
generated eagle that they can interact with. It seems like a silly idea when you read it off paper, but I thought they pulled it off and made it humorous and yeah, this
yeah,
scene it makes you think of many, many things there.
yeah. Because I mean, you look at this, and it pretty much encompasses the whole series for season one.
Yeah, and I really am, Goff is there.
Hmm.
They
Gotham's
destroy
right here
the
in the middle.
cow. They destroy the cow. So there's no new production for this. But we see a map of suspected butterflies and it covers the entire globe. So there's
Hmm.
obviously going to be distribution centers that still have this stuff. I'm almost wondering if Goff will infect another person, possibly work more with them since he
Then
is
against
there at
them.
the end, since he did show up. I'm not quite sure what's going to happen with that. I almost kind of was like, oh, well, I wonder if Judo Maker would give himself up to Goff. And then Goff
Possibly.
is in a very capable human, although be it small, but he still can do a lot more than he could as Goff, at least physically.
Hmm.
And I we can assume there's more of the goo and there's more of these other, basically sects of these butterfly groups.
Definitely. And even Betsy says that, this shot right here, it is a generational thing. August Smith comes from one generation who was raised a certain way, who has the viewpoints that, some may or may not agree with. And Christopher comes from another generation with another perspective. Every generation
Mm-hmm.
has their own perspective.
And yeah, as bad as they make uh Christopher's dad in this, he's a white dragon of a KKK group. He's the ultimate,
Yeah.
white dragon. But it a lot of people from that generation, even if you take it as little as you can just relate to how the father spoke to his son. Like, oh, quit
Hmm.
being such a pansy and, kind of, grow some balls kind of attitude. And with
Yeah.
that, it's like you may not have had the physical or mental abuse that Peacemaker dealt with and, outside influences and things like that. But having a hard ass dad from that generation was very common when you
Yeah.
when you saw parents that were super nice to their all the time and spoke differently. That's when you were like, wow, what are your parents about?
Exactly. I mean, even growing up, I can remember, not every parent was the same. Some parents were very, very much hard asses on their kids, and other
Hmm.
parents were very easygoing. It just depends on, you know, the relationship and how they were raised. And
And it didn't even matter whether you're religious or not, or what your beliefs were, because you would see variations in people who were religious. Some were more
Mhm.
lax than others, and some were very strict. And then you'd go to the other side, non-religious or less religious people. You would see some being very strict, militant almost, and then some being very laxed, kind of flower childy.
Yeah, yeah, because I mean, let's look at it this way: for the baby boomer generation, because that's the generation that my parents were. You had the flower childs, you had the kids who were kids of World War II veterans. Practically
Hmm.
everybody from that generation had parents who served in World War II in one aspect or another.
Yeah, and if not affected by it,
Hmm.
like you said, had parents or something, but even a relative having to deal with those veterans of that first generation that would come back injured the way they did.
Yeah. I mean, I can remember my dad telling me about, how my grandfather was when he came back and my dad got older because my dad was actually born while my grandfather was serving in World War II. But he says there were aspects of the war your grandfather did not want to talk about.
Yeah, and as I've heard stories of people, as the people in their life that were in any war, as time passes, even their stories will change. Like how involved were,
Mhm.
they're just more accepting or more willing to discuss the things that happened. You could almost go from, oh, he just rode a desk to all of a sudden he's loading artillery on one of the major missions. You know what I mean? Just
Mhm.
there's so many things in that era that can affect how a person lived, let alone interacted with other people.
Yeah. But I have to say one thing about this series. I highly recommend it. I know it
Yeah.
won't sound that way if you watch my quick take on the first episode, second episode, and third episode, but sticking with this series, which I did, after all is said and done, I highly recommend this series. James Gunn and Warner Brothers did a great job with this series. You got to give credit to the writers. You got to give credit to, the actors. And I'm not kissing their butts. I'm looking at it from a perspective of someone who initially did not like the series. But
And especially with another certain series that was released at this time that I entirely thought I was gonna like more than this one. Like
mhm,
this literally was a series, like you were saying, like it's almost an afterthought. Like I'll check it out, but I don't have high hopes for it. We know his character from the movie, and like again, like you were saying, the first 2, 3 episodes when I went back and watched them, you can tell in the first couple episodes I was like, oh, a couple of these jokes are kind of lingering on a little long, and they're kind of staying in this scene a little long. But after those first couple filmings, I thought they really got a flow of the show. Like
yep,
what worked, what didn't, and even their timing. Like how long can they stay with a joke, and even what
mhm,
jokes were almost too much at that point.
yep,
Because in the first couple episodes, I definitely felt that way. It was like, I get what they're doing, and you got to think that the Guardians of Galaxy humor, that kind of out of nowhere humor,
mhm. Which
but yeah,
was
so it was
provided a
very
lot of
cool.
times by Vigilante. Vigilante
Yeah,
was the one that provided a lot of that humor.
he was easily the comic relief, and
Mhm,
then there was things like even when, like, there's an interaction that Vigilante and Peacemaker have when they're trying to communicate with Goff in the jar.
mhm,
It's just like, okay, Vigilante is clearly making the jokes on the script, but I
mhm,
was laughing so hard at how John Cena was reacting to him because it was like, what do you not understand? It's yes or no questions. Quit
mhm,
asking these complex. It's 2 rules. One, yes or no questions. Two, what he says. Don't be a f up. and
yep,
and then it's basically after that, it's like, God, what am I dealing with? And then Vigilante says, like he says that one last line that just makes you smack your forehead as a viewer, and that's when Peacemaker just turns to him and just and I laughed so hard at that scene. I was like, that is literally how this guy makes you feel at this moment.
yep, yep. Because you did want to, take your hands and just grab his shoulders and shake him and go, "What is wrong with you?"
There's no words at that point for your level of frustration.
Mhm,
And that's when I really was like, wow, this show is really, really hitting its stride and learning the stuff, and those scenes of all the group in the van, and even how they interacted with Myrn and things like that. I just really thought
mhm,
the series excelled after the first couple episodes. I looked forward to it every week. I watched each episode multiple times.
mhm.
And like I said, compared to another series, I very much would suggest this to many, many people.
As would I. And as far as a rating, my ratings here on Pacific 4 and 4 episode reviews are 1 through 5, and I'm giving this episode a 5.
Is it 5 out of 5?
Yeah.
Yeah, I would for sure do that, especially the way, I mean, James Gunn shot a Marvel movie,
Hmm.
with Guardians. And then he brought that into Suicide Squad, which wasn't as well received. But I think this series was shot great. I thought the writing and the characters and everything was great. I really can't praise this one enough, other than you can't have an elitist attitude when you watch this. And I mean that by like you have to like some crass jokes. Not too many. Like you kind of got to get over that a little bit and kind of suspend your reality just a little bit. I mean, you do
Yes.
have to accept. you do have to accept that he interacts with a bald eagle.
And accept the series for what it is, but also give it time to simmer.
Yeah. Definitely. I don't think this is a show you can watch the first episode and decide. You definitely need to watch all the episodes, and I think if you're not if you're not in a negative space, I think viewers would very much enjoy this show. I
Hmm.
think they brought Peacemaker into a very likable realm from where he was before. Because
Yeah.
that was my biggest wonder about this series. It's like, well, he kind of was a big jerk in Suicide Squad. I mean, I liked his character, I liked the interaction with him and Idris Elba a lot. I thought they did really well together, and he did as good as he could do on camera. I didn't have any problem it being a wrestler as the star, and I thought everybody pulled their weight very well.
Yeah, so did I.
And him coming in, I mentioned him doing Marvel, and now he does this style in DC. So it'll be interesting to see. It'd be interesting to see how it works out because there's the controversy with Gunn and Marvel and him and the cast. I supporting him and whatnot, and we'll have to see if maybe he goes to DC. Maybe we'll see it just as some. I don't think he could just do any movie, but I think there is characters in the DC universe that his style would work with.
Yep. Well, I know he's coming back for Guardians of the Galaxy 3. After that, who knows?
Yeah, and they keep having those references saying this is the last team that we're going to see, and I don't know if they mean this is the last Guardians team we're going to see, or is this the last Guardians team iteration? Like, is the team going to be gone, or is there just going to be a whole different team? Because I was like, oh, I could see Thor coming in and a few other more celestial type beings, and because Thor
Mhm.
always used to have the joke, the Asgardians of the galaxy, and I just don't know if they. Groot is such a popular character, and Drax, and they're just all of them. Rocket, everybody loves. They definitely could put them in something else.
Yeah. But, I just don't know what you would do if, you do decide to go with another Guardians of the Galaxy movie. I think it's a case where it deserves to be a trilogy.
Oh
You know,
they definitely earned their right to be a trilogy. There was a point in time when 3 movies, it was like, God, man, you made 3 of those, and then it became a staple. It's like we
hmm
kind of expect 3 movies, and Guardians, even the second one, not as many people like, but I think both of them were some of the best Marvel movies, and
yeah,
I definitely think they should make a third, but that kind of cast I can understand would be tough to bring together. Any ensemble cast, when you do a couple good movies, it gets a little harder and harder for them to come in. But I like these kind of X-Men type teams where it's not just a few heroes.
hmm
Avengers is similar, but Avengers is not X-Men. And I like to see that real cohesiveness. So we'll see if they, the Guardians had that. They really worked good as a team, as goofy as they were.
yeah,
Just kind of like this series, as goofy as all these different characters were, they did great together.
yeah. They did, and
See
you
you
know
later, Betsy.
who would have thought at the beginning when you hear that the series is going to be produced and put on HBO Max that it would actually turn out as good as it did. And I want to thank you, Batsio, for coming by and watching the stream. I really appreciate it, and thank you, Pat. I want to be for letting him know about it.
Oh yeah, that's I've been trying to get that guy involved a little more. We just don't. We're from different, servers, and we have different interests. And but this one here, we both really liked. We were talking about it, and I was like, "Hey, I know this other guy. Maybe you should catch up on it because he really likes the series. It's
Mhm.
nice. We all like talking about stuff we like with other people.
Yeah, that's what makes it fun. I mean, yeah, I can admit it myself. There are times where it seems like all I'm doing is moaning and groaning and complaining about something that's coming out or I've seen, and it just isn't hitting me the right way. The storyline's not any good, or the characters are rather boring. But in this case, in this series, what I said in the beginning still holds true for the first three episodes. But it's one of those
Hmm.
series where you have to stick it out.
Yep. And in those first three episodes, they're not doing a whole lot. It's not like the first three episodes are drastically different. Then, the characters don't really change a whole lot. They don't, they all still have the same personality. They didn't view it as, oh, this really doesn't work. I just think
Hmm.
they really found their stride. They really found the flow of how the show went. And this series, the finale was great. They had several different times when you could say, "Oh, this is the climax. This is the
Hmm.
end," and then they have a little bit more, and then they have the cameos, and then kind of a little bit extra cameo, and none of it felt forced. I thought it all just worked so well.
Yep, it really did. It's like they took their time and put out a roadmap as far as where they wanted the series to go. And normally I would save an article like this for Pop Talk, but since it's related to the subject matter of tonight's live stream, I thought I'd go ahead and read this article from GameSpot. It was posted on the 16th of this month, and it's by Matt Elfring. And it says Peacemaker renewed for season two as HBO Max wants second taste of DC series, making a reference to the lyrics in the theme song. And it says John Cena is returning as a man who will do anything for peace.
Well, we
And that,
know he's a little different now.
yep,
But
that we do.
yeah, that makes it gives a little bit different kind of levity to this because they're already saying this. So that means the online buzz has got to be very positive
Hmm.
for this series, which I mean, it kind of catches me off guard. I'm glad to see another good series that I want to watch that is an original. I mean,
Hmm.
it's a little bit of a drag to have to pick and choose your different streaming services now because of their content, but I have to say I've been pretty pleased with what this particular station's put out, especially this particular series.
Yep, same here. And this article says Peacemaker is wrapping up its first season on February 17th. But ahead of the finale, HBO Max has announced the series is getting a season two. That means more John Cena as the titular character shooting people in his underwear. James Gunn, who directed The Suicide Squad, which introduced the world to Peacemaker, directed and wrote every episode for season one. And with this announcement, Gunn has signed on to write and direct all episodes of season two. At the time of this writing, it's unknown how many episodes the follow up season will consist of. Season one ran for 8 episodes. And there's a quote here saying, creating Peacemaker has been one of the true highlights of my life, both professionally and otherwise, with John Cena and the incredible creative team around me, as well as our partners at HBO Max, explained Gunn. To have something we all love so much be loved by the audience in turn has been a wonderful experience. I can't wait for folks to see where Team Peacemaker goes in season two. Goes on to say, I am incredibly honored and humbled by the response to Peacemaker and the experience of playing this character, said Cena. Thank you to James Gunn, Peter Safran, HBO Max, the crew, and my castmates who worked tirelessly to make this unforgettable series. And don't forget, he's still under contract with WWE as well.
Yeah, I wonder
And
how long it takes to film something like this for them.
yeah, I
Because
mean,
we all know, Rock was really the first one that forced a duality in the business, having to
mhm,
split his movie time with his wrestling career. I mean, Hulk Hogan and Stone Cold did it a little, but Rock was just so popular in the movies that he couldn't not be in the movies. He was too big of a
mhm,
cash cow.
yep. And the article continues by saying, in late January, Gunn said that season two would be likely, but HBO Max's announcement is the first confirmation of new episodes. While the show itself has been a blast for viewers, many people fell in love with the intro, which features the expressionless cast doing a dance to the song Do You Want to Taste It by Wigwam. And
Wow, that
it
kind of
goes on.
catches me off guard a little. I was not sure how that beginning, the whole hairband 80s music, and it's not even the best of 80s hairband music. I was really worried that that might turn a lot of people off, but I'm glad to see that got received well. It's just
Yeah,
fun.
because in my opinion, a lot of it's the obscure music, the ones that you didn't hear about.
Yeah, a lot of these songs I recognize, and I couldn't never tell you where I heard it or what year or what band it was. I was just like, God, I remember this time in my life hearing music like this all the time. And even a few of the comments they make in it, like when the two boys, Chris and his brother, are sitting there as young kids, and he's like, "Oh, this is total chick rock, but it's still cool." And it's like, yeah,
Hmm.
I remember that, all that whole talk in the media about glam rock, or do they look too much like women, and
Hmm.
wow, ballads really aren't rock music, but it may, and just all that stuff that happened in the 80s. It was so nostalgic and just such a pleasing feeling to hear that stuff, and it really brings joy, and it's like, oh, this is just so ridiculous. I love how they're doing this series.
Yeah, even in the flashback scene with Keith and Chris in the bedroom, and they're
Yeah.
listening to the music. I'm looking around
Yep.
at the bedroom, and I'm thinking, well, somebody at least did their homework because that does look like a bedroom from the 1980s.
Oh, yep. Got the posters everywhere, randomly hung
Hmm.
up. Nothing straight, and just yep, that's how it was. And yeah, the bands that they actually reference when Adebayo walks into Chris's trailer and she says the Guns N' Roses poster. It's like, yeah, man, they're covering all the bases.
Hmm. And
Even
this,
I was just gonna say, even when they reference Poison, I was like, wow, that's
yep,
really well known. I was surprised they pulled that one out because they were doing some real deep cuts.
yeah, there were. But, again, it's attention to detail, and that's one thing you get from James Gunn, especially with the Guardians of the Galaxy, is the attention to detail. If, you're going to be going back to a particular decade, then he's going to do his best to make sure that what you see on screen reflects what you saw during that decade. As, someone who was a kid in the 80s, I can still see my room as it was back in the 1980s.
Yeah, Bon Jovi and Def Leppard poster.
Mhm. Heck, I had a cousin who had, Bon Jovi and a few other bands. She had posters on her walls, but she also put it on her ceiling too.
Yep, yep. Only if you didn't have the cottage cheese ceiling.
Yeah.
Well,
And
yeah, it was just really good. The soundtrack was done, I feel, so well. It actually made me want to go back and find the music. Just like the movies he directed, the Guardians
mhm.
movies. I was not the biggest fan of all those songs, but the way he puts them in there gives them a whole new meaning. And it just like it almost reintroduces this music to an entirely new generation.
Well, it's like you said before, you hear a particular song, you go, I remember hearing that song. Maybe, like you said too, you weren't the biggest fan of the band that performed the song, but still, you can remember being in certain places and hearing that song playing, on somebody's stereo or,
Yeah.
you know, playing at the bowling alley or the skating rink or whatever.
Yeah, it was very you would remember where you heard a different sound. Could be at your
Hmm.
friend's house on a record player or somebody just bought a new tape. There was a lot of different, even though it was still analog and very primitive media. Not a lot of people knew about stuff, but when you were able to find a rabbit hole back then, the information was still there.
And it was. And, that's what those of us who grew up during that time period really appreciate, that attention to detail. You know, every little aspect of this show pays attention to what's going on now, but when we're given a flashback scene, it pays attention to how everything looked back then.
Yeah, and we all know only not every show does it well.
Mm-mm.
Not every flashback show does it right, and we've seen ones do it wrong, and this one does it. It does it right. This
Yeah.
gave me a very much of a Wonder Years and all those shows that really took me back to that era. It's like I
Hmm.
really feel like I'm a little kid almost watching this stuff.
Yeah, and I know I've been saying it in this particular live stream, but I really do recommend Peacemaker. I highly recommend it. Peacemaker is recommended highly on my list. I can't say it any other way. It's highly recommended on my list.
And yeah,
It's a
like you were saying in the beginning, I did not have hopes for this show like I do going into the second season. My hopes were not as high for it in the beginning. It was something I wanted to check out, but it's kind of the idea with all these shows. I'm going to check out Book of Boba. I'm going to check out the new Lord of the Rings show. I'm going to check out this. But Peacemaker made me a fan. And I'm very much looking forward, especially now that we know there's season 2 coming up. If
yes.
James Gunn can stay involved as he is, and not as long as they don't do any co-directing, kind of as they've done in other series, I think
Hmm.
it'll stay strong. I think they have plenty to go on to make a second season.
Yeah, because I'm curious to see where they take the story in the second season. You know, what sort of influence this ghost of August Smith has on Christopher, and what other flashbacks we might even see.
Yeah, well, definitely they've been leaning into his story. He does flashbacks of him remembering, and it's mostly by himself. And now I think we might have more conversational scenes instead of him flat. Like there'll be flashbacks, but he'll be talking to his dad. And
Hmm.
if they do it well, it'll be accepted. They can easily do it as well. This is a way he's making peace with himself.
Hmm.
He's everybody on the team has told him that he's a good person. He's just had a effed up life.
That he has, and again, give credit to James Gunn for writing out the scripts for each episode and writing not only one character but several characters that we actually start caring about.
And it's kind of weird that we actually want to see more of the particular ist character. Even though he's the way he was, the character was written well enough and the relationship is intriguing enough that, yes, keep this character around. We want to know more. Even
Mm-hmm.
though he was who he was, I want to see how it affected our hero, you know.
Yeah, I mean, give credit where credit's due to Robert Patrick.
Yeah. Yeah, that like we were saying before the show, that's just getting certain people to act in your show or movie. Almost, it's like, why would you just have them in this if they're going to not be in it anymore? That is very much how I felt when they got Jessica Biel for the Star Wars show. I was like, why would she do this character unless she really liked it? I thought they would keep her around longer. But, you know, it's
Mm-hmm.
like you're saying with this guy, he's a very keynote actor. He's easily the biggest actor on this bill. No question.
Oh yeah, I mean
So, yeah,
everybody. eh,
you wonder why he was interested. He liked the character, obviously. He did it believable. He didn't make me dislike him. He played it well enough that it fit the story. And yeah,
Mm-hmm.
I want to see it. It's obvious, seems very obvious that he would be around again. So yeah, I would think he would be almost an integral part. Like he could have more screen time than he did in this series. Because now he's technically with Chris all the time.
Yeah, there's could be action scenes coming up where Christopher's thinking about doing one move, and you hear August saying, "What are you doing that for? You got to do this." You
It's like,
know.
of course you would do that, you puss. You know?
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I can totally. Yeah, we'll have to see if it affects him um in his job, or if it just, so far it hasn't caused any damage, but I can see this showing up at the wrong point.
Yeah, and I could also see somebody saying, "But Mike, but Padawannabe, this show could go the same route as a CW show. They all start off good, but we all know what happens after that. They all start going downhill."
And hey, I'm sure you're probably right about that age. I was around when CW, the original CW, became a thing.
Mm-hmm.
You know, when
Yeah,
it
the
came out of
WB.
nowhere, basically, and then it became need to watch television. And I remember when it went through its cycle. All those beginning shows died out. They did.
Mm-hmm.
They changed over time. It's tough to keep the same core cast or writers or whatever you need when you run a show 5, 6, 7 to 10 seasons. It's
Yep.
tough to keep it the same all the time. And then we saw a few of those shows. Smallville went 10 seasons. There's not
Mm-hmm.
many people I know that didn't like Smallville, and that was CW, but it was a
Yeah.
different show. And
Yeah.
now we've seen, I enjoyed Archer or Arrow and Flash and Supergirl and Legends and all those. And to be honest, I got up to the big battle, the crossover with all the series. And
Mm-hmm.
after that, I have only finished Legends since. I haven't watched any of the other shows. Because Legends is the only one whose comedy kept me wanting to watch it, to continue to watch it. As goofy as it was, and it's very different from all those other CW shows. But
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I've seen CW kind of cycle through it a few times. And I remember when CW was really making a drive with their cartoons when that Batman series came out with Mark Hamill.
Yeah.
CW had a really big push on their cartoon series and television time at that in that era. And this was a
Yeah.
totally different era. No streaming networks were really battling it out because cable had not taken over yet. Still,
No, and even when cable was having a few minor successes, it
mm-mm.
was the likes of the WB network and UPN that were just starting out as the fledgling networks. So,
Yeah, most of cable's big success at that time was they would get the oh gosh, I can't remember what it is when they get the shows and they can rebroadcast the old seasons because then it was
yeah.
all of a sudden you could see Next Generation on TNT or TBS or whatever it was, even though they were still showing live episodes on network. And that was really a big turning point because they were like, oh, now we have popular shows on
Hmm.
cable. And then cable got a few original shows. And then it really started, once streaming happened, everything changed. But yeah, cable was it back then. And the
Yep.
networks were still the strongest thing out there. But if you wanted that R rated content, you had to go to cable.
Exactly. You couldn't just, hop onto a streaming service to get that rated R content. You had to, subscribe to HBO, Cinemax, Showtime, and a few other channels.
Yeah, this was still very much a time when the public, um, mostly the protesters, they would more be like the people against violent games and violent movies. They really still had a say on what was being viewed by the masses. And that's why it
Hmm.
was like, oh, if you wanted a comedian that cursed at all, he was only on HBO. Nothing else. George Carlin couldn't be on any other network, or Robin Williams couldn't be on anything, and it was very different. But the money was still in network, but the the big money was in movies, but the movie stars still couldn't be caught dead being television stars. It was
Exactly.
so weird back then compared to how it is now.
Because back then, you see a television actor try to make it in movies, and that was frowned upon by the
Yeah, they thought
industry.
they were a joke. It's like, oh, you can't be serious. You can't hang with us. It was just they just wouldn't even give them a chance. Those doors were not open yet.
Mm-mm. I mean, yeah, some might even say it. Heck, I'm gonna say it right now. It was a joke with George Clooney as Batman and Batman and Robin,
Yeah.
but that's just my opinion.
I think that was the era. If you've lived through that era, that was still I think that was the tail end of the bad sequels era. Because they might be able to make one or two good movies, but not many people could make three. And at that
Mm-mm.
time, even making two good movies was a new thing. Batman Returns was one of the first big ones because Die Hard 2 didn't do incredibly well. But then
No.
Terminator 2 crushed the box office. So things were kind of changing. And like we
Hmm.
mentioned earlier, now you expect a trilogy. You expect three movies. If the first movie's good, you expect three movies, not two. You expect three.
Yeah, and you expect the sequels to be better than the first one.
Yeah, yes. That's what we hope and that's what we want. And the problem comes in now where we get that Hollywood uh money. It's do people have as much creative license as they want? Did things change halfway through the series? Did contracts change? There's just so much that goes on now. And even with the media, I mean, people's public images, a lot of content creators, as well as people in the limelight, stars. and even talk show people or news, you know, news influencers, they all just, it's just so frustrating. They all think they have this huge influence, and they do.
Mhm.
And that's the huge difference now. Is this back before we didn't have all these influences that we think are right? There's just too many. There's too much stuff coming around. And what I meant to say, like Hollywood getting involved in the money and all that, is like we saw what happened with Book of Boba. They
Mhm.
involved too many people. There was too many chefs in the kitchen.
Yep.
And unfortunately, I think with all the media we've had over the last couple of years, that was the first visual result that we saw of what we've heard about over the past couple of years. And
Mhm.
with this series, I was super impressed that James Gunn, because he's had his controversy in the past also, that they
Yep.
were able to pull it together and do this series, and gives me hope. I enjoyed it, and it's not cinematic excellence, but I think this show was shot very good. There's never a time when I felt they were on a set. I always felt very immersed in the environment and the characters, and you've
Mhm.
plugged it this whole time as you've enjoyed it more and more. And yeah, so have I. And I would suggest it to anybody. Give it a chance, and why not? Especially with as much stuff that's out there that is garbage. You know, hey,
Mhm.
if you like rock music, just give the show a shot. You might, if only you get a nostalgic feeling. I mean,
Yep.
I think there's comedy levels for everybody. I just think this is a show. Just accept what it is, because it accepts what it is for sure. They've leaned into their absurdity.
Yeah. The show doesn't shy away that it knows what it is. It's completely aware of what kind of show it is. It just wants the audience to come along for the ride.
Yeah, even though we have to deal with Vigilante.
Yep. Yep. Well, Vigilante aside, he is still a character that you can deal with because there are other characters that balance him out.
Oh yeah, I very much looked at Vigilante like, oh, he's almost like the kid brother that you have to bring along with you because your parents are making you watch him. She's like, ah,
Hmm.
we got to bring him with us.
Oh, come on, mom! Come on, dad! Why are you doing that to us?
Yeah, and it just everybody deals with him. They never really try to shun him, and they
Mm.
they just, oh, okay, this is what we're dealing with.
Yep.
So yeah, I thought this was good. Well, I ran you pretty long tonight.
Hey, that's all right, brother. I knew it was going to go along, especially talking about the season finale and everything that went on leading up to this final episode of the season and what we ended up seeing in the episode too.
Yeah, and even the technical stuff. Like, as a viewer, I didn't notice, oh, this episode's shorter than this one. It was all consistent,
Hmm.
even down to the writing. It's not like, wow, this one really feels different, or this way you could tell this person was in control. I just
Yep.
think everybody is on board with the vision. And if you watch the series, I know we only have limited access to it, but check out some YouTube stuff, check out the bloopers, check out the other stuff, the other interviews and things, because I just think it goes to show that this is the right group for this kind of show right now. They
Hmm.
fit really well. This is their time to shine, and I hope they can keep the charisma going.
And there's one thing that this show doesn't ride like.
Like a panther. Yes.
Oh, that's pretty good timing.
Yeah. Yeah. And, I am going to say this that after watching an episode of Book of Boba Fett, when you had Peacemaker, I was going, oh, the tonic after watching an episode of the Book of Boba Fett, and I felt the same way when it came to Star Trek Discovery and The Mandalorian. The
Oh,
Mandalorian was the tonic after watching Star Trek Discovery. It's like,
I
oh, the
mean,
relief.
yeah, the difference between those shows is like Discovery and even Bad Batch for some, but Book of Boba really distinctly. There was moments when you actually would stop as a viewer and question something or go, "What did they really just do or say or insinuate that?" Or they would do so, and there was just too many moments where, like people say, I was taken out of the moment, and
Hmm.
it's like, oh, I don't want to have to notice something. And that's what this series and um the one you just mentioned, I'm sorry, I can't remember, I forgot it already. But they have done really well with making me not notice. Like they're just written so well. It
Cobra Kai
flows
comes to
so
mind as a
pardon?
series.
Oh,
Cobra Kai comes to mind as a series that you can watch it and enjoy it.
that one almost kind of like this one. When I watch Cobra Kai, I would tell people if you're a fan of current cinema, this is a show where you have to suspend your reality just a little bit. Because
Hmm.
their characters, to me, their mentality is still very much the high school bully against the other guy, with the
Hmm.
guy that's having problems with the high school bully. How Lawrence and Daniel interact with each other. It's like, God, these guys they are still these kids.
Yep.
So I forgive some of the dialogue because it's like, oh, it's very almost teenish at times, but it's never horrible. It's
Mm.
all believable. You're just like, oh, I can't believe this guy talks like this still. God, he makes me embarrassed to be a man. But he gives me the same feeling that I did when I watched The Karate Kid in the 80s. It's like, God, that guy's such a jerk. He makes me embarrassed to be a man,
Hmm.
He doesn't it doesn't change my perspective of him, even though it's a little people would call it outdated. Because it gives off it really exudes that era's cinema texture, I guess. Just
Hmm.
how things looked and how people acted and they really pull that whole show off. The aesthetic and everything about it is just so well done. It takes you back in every single aspect.
And that it doesn't. That's all we want. We just want to be taken out of whatever element we're in the real world and taken to you know, the world of a TV show where we can get lost in it for 30 minutes or 45 minutes.
And this, we both recommend it. And I would say this is definitely a show that you can enjoy watching for a little bit. Like, oh, I want to watch the next one. It's kind of a bummer. There's only this many episodes, but I'll take it. I didn't, I, the story did not leave me feeling like, but I need another episode for the season to be better. I wish there was another episode, but they tied it up.
Hmm.
They tied it all up, wrapped it in a clean bow. I am completely accepting of this. 5 out of 5. 2 thumbs up. 10 out of 10. Whatever you got.
All right. So you've heard it from myself. You've heard it from Pat Wannabe. We both give it 5 out of 5 stars. So what we're saying here, folks, is watch this series. You know, make it past those 3 episodes. You've heard our warning about those 3 episodes, but this series is worth it. Unlike the Book of Boba Fett, I'm just coming out and saying it.
And I forgot to mention this earlier, is this show came out after, all the illness we were dealing with. And they obviously have been able to get a schedule going. They finished the season out with no delays and didn't have any problems. And they finished
Hmm.
it out good. We can't mention it enough. Good editing, good writing, good characters, good acting, good story, good directing. So I think they know how to do it with the circumstances we're given right now. And I think it can only get better.
Yeah, and that's where the series is going to go. Hopefully, is season 2 is going to just build upon what season 1 gave us and give us even more. And then hopefully there's a season 3, maybe a season 4, maybe a season 5, 6, 7, however many seasons they feel they can get out of this. And the only way they're going to actually get more seasons out of this is if people like us actually watch the series
Yep,
and
this
stick
would
with it.
definitely be on my repeat viewing list. This is
Hmm.
definitely something, now that I've seen it a few times, this is something that goes on in the background now.
Yeah.
This will get a lot of views.
Yeah. And again, hats off to James Gunn, hats off to Warner Brothers. I'm not kissing their ass. I'm just giving them credit where credit is due.
Yep, they did well, and I'm glad to see DC with something good under their belt.
Yep.
I mean, I can't say I hate any of their other movies, but this is the first one that I'm really excited for. Now there's other shows coming out in the next few months, heck, in the next
Hmm.
few days and weeks. But now I'm looking forward to, when's Peacemaker season 2 coming out?
Yep. That's the announcement we want to hear. We want to hear the release date for season 2.
Yeah, I'm
We already
really
know
excited.
about the renewal, but we want to hear about the date, and that'll come in time. And is there anything else that you'd like to say, Pat? I want to be.
No, I think we got it. I think we
All right, brother.
rang this episode out. It was a pleasure to be here.
Thank you for coming on. I mean, after I watched this episode, I'm thinking I want to do my review on Saturday and I want to do it live, but I'm going to see if Pat Wannabe wants to come on and talk about it with me.
Oh, fully. I think it's good to have a discussion of something instead of just a flat out review, just because you see different points and we can involve the chat and ding, ding, ding. It just the way media is now. I think a panel is good. Can't have too many chefs in the kitchen. And as long as everybody's on the subject, I think that really counts. I was thinking we should probably find another series we should do this with, because I really enjoyed this. And the series being as good as it was did help. I totally admit that.
Mm-hmm. So
But
again, one last time, 5 out of 5 for this series. Highly recommend it. Just, understand that the first 3 episodes are what they are, but the series does get better. The 5 remaining episodes really make up for what the first 3 gave you.
but yeah, if you watch Guardians of the Galaxy or you like Deadpool, you'll be fine with this.
Yeah, definitely. So, as I leave you all today, I do want to thank those who up by in the chat. I want to thank Batsy Yo for stopping by. Thank you. First time seeing you, and thank you for coming by. Thank you, Padawannabe, for letting him know about the
Oh
stream
yes,
tonight.
oh yes.
And I want to thank Cool Spot. Thank you for stopping by, asking if I'm cool, asking if you're cool. You know, that's up for a Cool Spot to decide, but I hope you all like the content that you see here, because I also like doing panels like this when it comes to episode reviews and movie reviews and even talking about pop culture on Pop Talk. I want to get other people's perspective instead of my own perspective where I've already made up my mind. And
Yeah, it is tough to I have you tend to have a wide interest in things too. You like sports, movies, nerdy stuff, and cool stuff. and news stuff. And, it's hard to have somebody more interested in popular news
Mhm.
and not just what's getting clicks. It's like what are people really interested in? And that's, if people are talking about it, that's what I like. That it's like, well, hey, let's give it a watch or let's give it a listen. I like it with
Mhm.
music and movies and sports and all that stuff. And it's hard to find somebody that likes that much.
Yeah, because I'll be perfectly honest with you. I've met some people in my regular everyday life who are into Star Wars, who are into Star Trek and Doctor Who, but the moment I mention something sports related, mainly baseball, they're like,
You
"Back, you
get the
heathen!
same you get
Back!"
the same eye glaze as when you talk to somebody about Star Wars and they're not a Star Wars person. They're
Hmm.
like, oh, whatever, I'm gone. You're like, gosh darn it, I want to share so bad.
Yeah,
But no, this would
and
be cool. I was really thinking we should try and find another series, something that's coming up.
well, there is a series I've been watching off and on. I haven't finished the first season yet, and that's Warrior.
Is that gosh, that sounds I wanna say I've seen it, like maybe running through the oh nope. I really have to. Is it it's got a girl and a guy and a sword
Yeah,
on
it's
the
about
picture? Okay, yep.
yeah.
I know exactly what you're talking about. I'll look into that because I
Okay.
almost want to say I watched part of it and then it got lost. So yeah, I've been looking. I've been eyeing that particular one myself. Is that one dubbed?
Well, what's nice about this series is that the actors are speaking both Chinese and English. So you have some
Okay,
scenes where there's speaking Chinese, and then you have scenes where there's speaking English. It's just
then
how the series is done.
that's what it was. It was I was watching it until I started having to read it, and I was like, "Gosh, I can't watch this right now. This is going to be a show that I'll have to sit down and devote time so I don't keep missing stuff." Because it did catch
Hmm.
my interest. So yeah, maybe we'll talk. Maybe that'll be the next one we do. We'll see.
Yeah, I mean, we could do a watch party one day and then talk about it on stream later.
But yeah, and I don't know what's going on with this Lord of the Rings thing. I'm not sure. I'm not getting, not hearing exactly the greatest positive buzz about it.
I'm not that excited about it yet. I need to see more. I'm not
But
sold
then
on it yet.
I see some, I see some things. We'll see. But I did not have a problem with Hobbit the way a lot of Lord of the Rings fans did. I thought Hobbit was decent. There's no way it was going to be Lord of the Rings, but
Mm-mm.
I think this series can look good. We'll see what happens. We'll see if politics get too involved or not, because this literally could be one of those series that becomes an example.
Yep. And other people I would like to thank for stopping by. And yeah, I know Nerd Foil. I know. You're promoting the channel, shameless plug, and now I owe you $20. I'm wearing your hoodie, man. That should be payment enough.
There is no friendship fee. That is false. There is no friendship fee.
I also want to thank A Man Fate, or like I said earlier, as I've heard,
Hey.
he likes to be called Fate. And I also want to thank Darius Munchausen. Thank you, brother. Really appreciate it. And I want to thank you all for watching this during the live stream, or if you're watching this after the live stream. Thank you. And of course, my guest, the Padawan wannabe. Thank you, brother. We definitely got to do this again.
Do you really want to taste it?
Oh, yes. Do we want to taste it? We want to watch it again. That's what we want to do.
Yep.
And we're looking forward to season 2.
Yep. Throw your dog the invisible bone.
So thank you everybody for watching. If you like what you saw here, please give this video a thumbs up. If you didn't, give it a thumbs down. Leave a comment down in the comment section below and subscribe to the Pacific 414 YouTube channel. And Padawannabe, is there anything you want to plug?
No, I don't have any definite dates yet, but I do have some stuff that could be coming up. We're still doing not sure if you're familiar with Strike 721, but he does some Lego. He has a Lego channel, and we're
Mhm.
gonna do some Lego lightsabers
All
because
right,
they don't make Lego lightsabers. So we're
let
going to
me
do a stream and kind of collaborate and try and have some fun.
let me go ahead and find this channel and put a link in the description
And it's
for
Strike
anybody who wants.
underscore 721.
Okay.
And his channel is he has if you search Strike 721 you'll find it, but he also does a show Talking Bricks where we just get on there while he streams and we all build different Lego stuff. So there's something to look
Okay.
for if you like Lego.
All right. And I do have his link, so I will go ahead and post it into the chat.
But yeah, he'll keep updates on there. So if you get on there and you can get your updates there, because he'll let me know. So he'll have the information before I will. But that is something we are planning to do. And we've done a
Okay.
few streams in the past already. So
Very cool. Very cool. And I'm gonna real quick before I end the stream, I'm gonna go ahead and put the link to his channel in the description of this live stream. This
I guess
way,
I mean I do have a channel. I just don't put content out regularly right now because I just don't have a studio and all that stuff. But eventually there'll be Lego builds and Zoid builds and Star Wars stuff and things like that. So
all right. Sounds like a lot of fun. I mean, even Goggles and Gadgets, he does good stuff on his channel.
oh yeah, it's just kind of like I know I won't be doing it as a regular basis. I doubt I will ever make any money. I'm not planning to do anything like that. I just know the things I'm interested in, there's lots of other people interested in. So as
Hmm.
I build these things, and a lot of my collection is from the late 80s and throughout the 90s. So I'm constructing my man cave. So I'll be putting up decorations. I'm going to do videos along the way, but I've got a lot of things I want to put up, comic books, retro video game consoles and things like that. I want to do like a Star Wars diorama, and I have slot cars and electric trains from, years and years ago when I was a kid. So I'm going to have that all up in my playroom. So as I do all that, I'll be recording things I do, decorating and whatnot. So it'll just be fun stuff.
Yeah, fun stuff, and just be yourself. That's the greatest advice I've been given doing this. Is just be yourself. Don't put on some sort of facade. Just be you.
Yep, you'd have been amazed at how many people liked the stuff you liked if you would just talk to them in elementary school.
Hmm. Well, unfortunately, I can't go back. Just have to move forward.
Oh, yes. Learn from the past, move toward the future, and accept the time you're in and be grateful.
Yes, sir. And thank you all so very much. This ends the stream. Hope you all have a good Saturday night and a good rest of your weekend. And we will see you all later.
Bye.